Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes, and today we're going to be doing another How to Play an Operator. Now, if you're just checking out the channel for the first time, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like these kinds of videos. We do operator guides, map guides, tips and tricks, and other sorts of videos like this, so stay tuned if that's something you're interested in. Now, How to Play an Operator is a series that I started with How to Play a BOMBA, and I plan to carry out through all of the operators. Also, if there's any big changes, either nerfs or buffs, I'll make sure to even leave a comment, but I've been trying to leave like the wiki link or something down below so that way you guys can go look at what the most updated information is, because a lot of times stuff gets nerfed, guns get nerfed up and down, things, all sorts of different things happen. So that's always really important to have. Now, the series is how to play an operator with a team environment, how to play with your team, and sort of the role that you'll normally fill on that team. Now, these views are subjective to what I've seen on Pro League, Challenge League, Go For It's how I play and how I've seen others play. Overall, though, I think that this is how you should play the operator. Now, remember that different regions have different play styles and that individual players have personal preferences. But if you're using this, you can probably run it in a solo queue or obviously run this in a 5-stack. Anyways, guys, let's start off with how to play Mozzie. Now, Mozzie came to us in Operation Burnt Horizon. If you don't know that already, that is Year 4, Season 1. He came with Gridlock being his attacker counterpart, and honestly, he sort of changed the landscape and how you play sites and how you can play mostly above and below sites because of the way his gadget works, which we'll explain in a little bit. Truthfully, I think that Mozzie has really made an impact, especially more so on the competitive scene, because he brings a lot of strats that we weren't able to see before, just because he kind of isn't almost in the same role as Mute, but not just quite there. But I think that one of my favorite things about Mozzie is the fact that he is a 2-2 operator, so 2 speed, 2 armor operator, which really gives you a lot of flexibility when you're trying to pick how you want to use him. He is fast enough to be able to sort of move across the map. He also has the gadgets and guns and loadouts to be able to do so also. But I think that not only that, you can also play him on site with that exact same loadout for the exact same reasons. And I think that the biggest thing to me is that his gadget overall has kind of changed how you play sites also. Because if you don't already know what a Mozzie Pest is, basically what it is you are going to stick it on a drone. You can put it down or you can actually shoot it right onto a drone, and it'll capture that drone and proceed to allow you to use it. Now, there's no limitations besides you can't use the drone outside the map, in terms of like you can't use it where you can't go, where normally you'll get spotted. You also can't bring the drone there else the drone will break. The drone basically works how you would normally use it on the attacking side, which is one of my favorite parts, because you can put drones and think of all the random spots that you might put a drone on attack. You can do the exact same thing with Mozzie. Now, you're probably thinking, if you've never played Mozzie before, you've never really paid attention to someone playing Mozzie, what if someone teammate shoots a drone? Can they shoot a drone? Well, basically, your teammates can still shoot the drones. The enemies can still shoot the drones. There's no like impenetrable force that all of a sudden gets onto it. But one of the things is that it's kind of hard for an attacker to see your drone, because the only way they really see it is if there's a blue light on it rather than the normal light that is on it when their attackers are using their drone. And that is one of the key indicators that your Mozzie has clearly taken the drone. Now, when you're on the defending side, I'm not too sure because I have my outlines turned off, but the outline of the drone when I capture a Mozzie drone or if someone else does still pops up for me. So I don't think there's any problems there if you have your outlines turned off like I do. But I think that if you're on the defender side and you know you have a Mozzie, make sure that your Mozzie is communicating with you like, okay, I'm trying to capture a drone, or I've already captured a drone. Because honestly, half the time I feel like people kind of get mad that you shoot their drones right as a Mozzie pest jumps onto it, but it's like, I didn't even know that was there because I can't even see the pest. So a lot of communication might go into this, but I think that overall you're going to probably be okay, because the outline really is pretty big and it's kind of hard to miss. You're not going to randomly just shoot a drone that has an outline around it because you know that's your Mozzie's drone. Now, let's talk about what kind of synergies he has with his team. More specifically, what operators does he work together with that honestly not every other operator gets the opportunity to? Well, as I mentioned earlier, he's kind of similar in the way of Mute in terms of being able to block a doorway, block a window, anything like that where you can't let a drone in because either there's a Mute there or Mozzie there. You can't get a drone into there, which is really, really, really helpful. So Mute is definitely one of the first ones and definitely one of the primary ones, because honestly, if you're playing with a Mute and Mozzie on your defense, you're going to make it really hard for attackers to really drone you out. Now, another one that I wanted to point out is Castle. In the same way that mute sort of stops someone from getting into a castle, Mozzie will actually stop them from being able to drone under a castle. So this isn't necessarily going to stop someone from breaching the castle, but it at the very least will stop someone from droning, especially because you can't break it without hitting it or putting an ash charge on it or something. You have to expend something more than you normally would. Lastly, one thing that I want to point out is anyone who roams can really benefit from a Mozzie. There's two reasons why. First reason being you can prevent someone from droning out the roamer. That's a pretty big reason. But the second one is if, let's say, your roamer goes back down to site or someone goes on a late flank, or maybe your roamer just on the other side of the map and hasn't gotten quite to either above or below the objective, you can actually drone out the rest of the site, the rest of above or below an objective, any other room that your roamer hasn't been into yet for your roamer. Basically how you do on attack, where you drone in your entry fragger and the entry fragger gets kills. Kind of the same idea, but it's on the defending side instead. This kind of works with Echo too, but mostly because of this is a Mozzie video, we're going to talk about Mozzie. I really think that this is the most useful way to use Mozzie, especially if you're going to anchor as a Mozzie. Now, taking a quick look over at Mozzie's loadout, you have two primaries to choose from. You have the Commando 9 and the P10 Roni. Honestly, if it was up to me, these guns both aren't bad. They kind of have their own give and takes. The P10 Roni does have a higher rate of fire, but it has less of a magazine size and less damage. So if you tend to hit your headshots a little bit more often, maybe go for the P10 Roni. Both guns don't really have that much recoil, so I wouldn't worry about that aspect of it. But honestly, I usually run the Commando because I don't always hit my headshots, so I usually just rely on body shots and getting the damage done there. Now, the secondaries that he comes with is the Super Shorty and the SDP 9mm. Now, the Super Shorty is a short-barreled shotgun, and honestly, the SDP being a pistol, if I had a choice, I'm definitely going with the short-barreled shotgun. More often than not, you're going to end up using that as more utility than you would use a pistol. If anything, half the time, if you're going to be having to use this, it's usually a last resort anyways. So you want to try and get up close to this because, again, it doesn't have that much distance. But overall, not a bad shotgun, but I would definitely go with the Super Shorty out of both of them. Lastly, the equipment that he comes with is the barbed wire and the nitro cell. Now, if I'm choosing between these two, I usually go with the nitro cell because I do like to anchor a lot more with Mozzie than sort of roam. But I think it just depends on what your team needs. But if you're just choosing to choose, I usually just go with the C4. Now, before we head on over to the actual tips and tricks of this video, I wanted to go over the Mozzie's counters really quickly. Now, one of the counters he has is Thatcher's EMPs that will destroy his pests, but if he already caught a drone, it'll simply just disable the drone like all the other cameras. Twitch is also a big counter, but at the same time, she can destroy his pests, but you can also capture her drone. So you do have to be careful if you're playing Twitch trying to get rid of a pest, but honestly, if you can get a Twitch drone, you're doing a lot. You're gonna have a lot of fun playing Mozzie because you can get rid of a lot of hard breachers stuff when you have it. Now, you can also use any sort of explosive, so Ash, Zofia, frag grenades, anything like that can actually get rid of these pests. And lastly, IQ can actually see when Mozzie captures a drone, she can see the drone wherever it is on her gadget. So that's a little bit of counters. Now we're going to head on over the tips and tricks. Now, before I get into any actual tips, I want to mention really quick, this is something that I really picked up from playing the game and sort of just understanding. One of the things, I feel like this is kind of subjective, but one of the things I noticed is that if you're using pests at the beginning of the round, so let's say in the prep phase and you're setting these things up, a lot of times you might end up catching a drone on accident, but I feel like pests aren't necessarily used to sort of take drones every single time. You don't want all of your pests to capture a drone at the very beginning of the prep phase. Sure, you get rid of 3 drones or 2 drones or 1 drone, but sometimes it can be just useful to keep your pests until the beginning of the round, so that way they're not able to find any of your roamers or find ways into sight that they might not have found either way. I think that this is something to think about when you're placing your pests down. It just kind of depends because I just don't feel like you're going to end up using that drone as well as you think you are. It just kind of depends though again, but it's just something to think about that I feel like I would add before showing you guys the rest of these tips. Now, tip number 1 is basically going to be taking a look at the ways that the Mozzie pest basically jumps onto a drone. There's 2 different ways. First one being directly onto the pest, so that's me shooting it right here. And the first one you saw was you basically put it down on the ground first. If a drone goes within that radius that you see, it pretty much gets snatched. But it has to have line of sight. So you have to be able to, the pest has to be able to see the drone and there's kind of a barrier between, it has to be like right in the line of sight. So here you'll see me on Twitch. It'll kind of show you from the other aspect how that all looks like. Basically, you see the pest on the ground right there. You have to drive within the circle, and then it'll capture it in a very scary fashion. Now, the next way is basically throwing it down and shooting it right onto the drone. This will capture it immediately. You don't have to worry about the pest sort of having to jump or drone being able to jump over your pest. Now, the next one that you're going to be seeing is how, it's kind of an example of where and how to put a pest down. One of the key things is that you want to make sure your pest completely covers whatever you're trying to put it on top of or put it next to, or maybe a doorway, because there are times where a drone can sort of parkour or get its way around, because again, it has to be within that area of effect or be within line of sight. So you'll kind of see with these next two examples of how that really works out. So you're going to see this from the other side right now, and I just really wanted to show you guys, again, you don't necessarily have to be in sort of, there's like a weird direct line of sight where the pest will actually jump on you. You see me drone up these stairs right now. I can see the pest, and I am definitely within the area of effect, but I think because I'm not on the exact same leveling as the pest, it doesn't end up capturing the drone. Also, here's just some ideas of if you do have a pest on a staircase like this, there are usually ways to parkour around it. So this is just kind of a thought process for both sides when you're using a pest, or if you're going to be droning against someone who's already using a pest. So just think about that when you're placing down your pest. What's sort of the objects around this? Because this right now is a really bad waste of a pest due to the fact that you can sort of just parkour over the side wall or whatever you want to call that. Now, this is another interesting trick that I've seen get used. I use it every once in a while, but we sort of realize that, again, the direct line of sight sort of hinders this plan, but I feel like most of the time, if someone sees the pest sort of notification, they're not normally going to risk it, especially because they might not know where exactly this pest is. And that's one of the key things. So you see right there that I jumped straight over the pest, and that's obviously going to get captured. So you're going to see this from the other side now. If you jump straight over the pest, it's obviously going to get captured in midair. But one of the key things that we notice is that, especially since this is in between the floors, it does kind of mess with the line of sight that you normally would see on the drone when you go to the side of where it is in between the bars. So there you see, you kind of saw the pest a little bit, but I'm going in between the bars where obviously the pest can't jump out of. This is one of the key things that I feel like we found, because it makes it so that you probably should just put it on the door frame rather than in the floor, but it's always something to think of because I feel like it could be useful depending on how you do it. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was really helpful. I hope these videos really help you out. If they do, make sure to hit subscribe and like the video, because I want to put these out a lot more often. And I just want to know that if this is one of the videos you guys like, just let me know down in the comments below. Also, if there's any tips I missed, make sure to let me know down there also. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap things up for today. And this is going to be Josh Snipes signing off.